V-Star up against our own Kyle Sabelhaus with Lost Zone Giratina V-Star.
Indeed, our own Kyle Sabelhaus. Both of these players, as I was saying, very accomplished throughout the history of the game. Yeah, they've been playing for a very long time. Kyle now dedicated a bit more to casting, but clearly his years of experience is showing here, and singing at 501 in the biggest tournament in history, nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, shaking off the dust to try to make a run at being North American International Champion, and both of these players are one win away from locking up that day two to try and make that happen. And with honestly two decks that we've known Lost Zone Giratina has been popular over in Japan for a lot and stuff, but a lot of players here kind of like threw it by the wayside. They're like, it's not that good. Like, Gardevoir is amazing. Like, it'll be fine. And then Ross, complete other end of the spectrum. I'm going to go Darkrai V-Star.
Yeah, definitely Ross is true to his style. He loves playing these off-meta decks. I know he really always tries to find that niche, that spot that will completely break apart the metagame. He's been more successful sometimes than others, but seems like Darkrai V-Star is working out really well for him, and as a close friend, very excited to see him here and very close to making day two.
Yeah, you want to spoil some of the decks that Ross decided not to go with?
So
is that still secret?
I know he was very intent on playing some fire concoction with like NTV. He was also trying out on Toso for a while. He quickly dropped that idea though. But yeah, Ross really likes exploring all the off-meta decks, right? It's really easy to pick up a tried and tested top-tier meta deck, but finding that spot that completely breaks apart the meta is usually, it's a big skill to have, yeah? And it's something that Ross has shown over and over throughout the years he's been playing now. Longer than I have, over 20 years, and he's gotten second place at Worlds twice, other amazing results, and yeah, I mean, he's always had that particularity of trying to break apart the metagame with his deck choices.
And honestly, this is a deck that we saw 3 weeks ago make the top 8 of the Fresno Regional Championship. It only got a few new cards, but those new cards help a lot. Squawkabilly EX and Iono. And of course, the metagame shifting to being Gardevoir-centered.
Yeah, between Gardevoir-centered, Mew is also a pretty popular choice. And then if you just take the raw approach of Darkrai V-Star, it's just a lot of damage really quickly, right? And unlimited damage, which is always fantastic to have. So turn 1 attack potential with Galarian Moltres V, late game single price attacking with Galarian Moltres, and then Darkrai V-Star at any point in the game can hit for some really big numbers, and a really powerful V-Star power in Star Abus.
Looking at the prizes, nothing too bad. Of course, Iono and Squawkabilly in the prize cards for Ross there. And a 1-1 Giratina V-Star line for Kyle. Both of the players are ready, and we are in it. Round 7, Pablo. Winner of this makes it into day 2. The loser has to try again in the next couple rounds. And Ross is starting things off. Galarian Moltres V in the active spot with a Battle VIP pass.
This very strong start for Ross. He will quickly find, though, that the Squawkabilly is in the prizes, which I know is very integral to getting really popping off in the beginning, getting those energies in the discard pile, which he benefits from in order to power up the Galarian Moltres V with Talonflame Wings, get those dark patches going as well. So yeah, that could hurt him a little bit, as it's really strong in that first turn, but thankfully he's not up against like the Turbo Lost Box, which can hit with Dragonite really quickly. It's Giratina V-Star, which takes a little bit of extra time to really get going.
Now Ross making sure to check and see everything that's prized, the resources you have available to you. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Ross Cawthon, one of the greatest players, most consistent players that we've had in the Pokemon trading card game. And honestly, I believe every year has qualified for Worlds, right? Does he have his invite this year already or no?
He did, yeah, thanks to some League Cups in this last quarter.
Okay,
He was able to
okay.
get his invite. He had already actually gotten to the best finish limit of 6 at regionals without getting his invite. So if without League Cups, he actually would have needed to guarantee championship points at this event, which he already has, right? So he's playing for glory. Yeah, he loves this event. He always puts a lot of effort into NAIC and Worlds. They're the two most special tournaments for him, and it's really paying off. The hard work is paying off for him today.
What's also paying off is that concealed cards finding a second Battle VIP pass. This hand would have been insane if Squawkabilly EX was in the deck. Having so many Dark Energies, Dark Patch in hand. Gonna have to play it the good old-fashioned way and hope to figure it out next turn.
Yeah, gonna have to take it a little bit slower than he would have liked, but that triple Darkrai is really, really cool to see. Now, I don't know if Ross knows exactly what version of Lost Box deck he's playing, or Lost Zone deck, I should say, as Giratina V-Star definitely is not the most common variant, right? Actually, Giratina V-Star seems to be like one of the most resilient Lost Zone-based decks in terms of Iono, because you can load up a Giratina V-Star preemptively, and it's not as easy to take down as a Dragonite or as an Entei or as a Sableye, right? So that late game push with damage can be pretty impactful. But yeah, we'll have to see how the game ends up developing here.
Now, Kyle did get quite a few cards off of a couple mulligans from Ross and top decks that Colress's Experiment. Otherwise, this hand was kind of a whole lot of not much. Energies, you got a couple Pokemon, Temple of Sinnoh, Escape Rope, but was really going to have to rely on that flower selecting. So that top deck of the supporter is pretty insane.
Yeah, the top deck into a Battle VIP pass right off that Colress really will allow Kyle to pop off here with a pretty strong start. 2 cards in Lost Zone already, a potential Comfey plus Cramorant here will allow Kyle to take a knockout. I'm sure Kyle, however much he tested for this event, will certainly not have tested against Darkrai V-Star. I don't think anyone will have taken, even though we did see it do really well at the last regional of the season, I don't think many people took that super seriously, as in order to get there, the player played against like, what, 5 Mew VMAX decks in day 2?
Oh yeah, it was insane. It was an insane run, and honestly, it might happen again. Ross just took down a Gardevoir last round. Anything's possible, especially in the game of Pokemon.
Anything is possible in the Pokemon trading card game. I would know it. I've had my fair share of, wait, what moments. But yeah, Kyle off to a pretty strong start, flexing those Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Psychic Energies, looking very nice with that art, and setting himself up. No Cramorant Search, so perhaps not trying to be as aggressive as he could, and just trying to make sure he has the right resources in the hand.
Does grab that Radiant Greninja so you can start filtering these energies in your hand, draw a couple extra cards. And I like the sequencing here. You start with concealed cards first. You want as much information as possible and another Battle VIP pass. That's why we didn't get Cramorant, because we knew this was going to happen.
But yeah, we totally knew this was going to happen. Absolutely. Now, interesting to see Kyle playing both Spiritomb and Path to the Peak, both very anti-Mew VMAX cards, which will coincidentally be really, really useful against Ross's deck here. Darkrai V-Star's ability can be stopped through Path to the Peak. Galarian Moltres' ability as well can be stopped through Spiritomb, which is actually a pretty big deal, as that's one of the main ways for Ross to get energy into play through its ability. So both of these cards, it'll be up to Kyle to realize how powerful they are against Ross at this stage. But yeah.
And here is an awkward flower selecting here. Mirage Gate Giratina V-Star. There's already one in the prize cards. And that's one you kind of need to find pretty quick. You don't have any copies of Ultra Ball or anything to be able to find it. So you just got to draw into it. And we see that there, Kyle prioritizing that Giratina V-Star.
Yeah, I mean, you can expect to not have to deal with like heavy Iono on the side of Ross, but some form of Iono will certainly make an appearance. We do see the Giratina, And we do see the Spiritomb, so Kyle recognizing that that Galarian Moltres could actually get a little out of hand, and double ability denial from Kyle to also shut down the Radiant Greninja.
And opts for Abyss Seeking instead of trying to find another card with a second flower selecting. This does two things. Puts a lot of HP in the front, doesn't give up easy prize cards to Ross, and it also builds up your loss zone a little bit faster. There's now 5 in there, and with a simple Colress's Experiment, you can hit 7, and you already have that Giratina in the active.
Yeah, setting himself up very, very nicely for the late game, for those Mirage Gates. You really need to attack with Giratina as quickly as possible. It can 1-KO everything in Ross's deck, and Ross is quite dependent on this V-Star and V Pokemon, so potentially good trades for Kyle in the future. But yeah, right now Ross's hand is pretty underwhelming. No supporter, no draw due to that path to a peak, so we might just see a pretty passive turn from Ross right here.
Yeah, this hand would be insane if you had access to abilities. You can Ultra Ball for that Darkrai V-Star, use concealed cards, and just get going from there. But even so, there's only a Battle VIP Pass in the discard, so your V-Star power won't really do too much.
Yeah, even if he could use it, it's really underwhelming. The Dark Patch as well, it's adding 30 damage, which is great, right? But it's just not enough to KO that Giratina if my math doesn't fail me, so...
I'll never say that, because then it's always going to fail you at some point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But have confidence in your math.
It honestly all comes down to this Squawkabilly being priced. That was pretty detrimental for Ross, prevented him from getting that fresh hand, and then you pile that on with Kyle's huge ability denial turn, and now he's backed into a corner.
Now it does look like Dark Pulse is going to be doing 150 with the Dark Patch, 30 for each energy plus the 30 base. That's not going to be enough to take a one-hit knockout on that Giratina V, but you can two-shot it.
It does set up the two-hit KO nicely, and then you gotta hope that Kyle doesn't just have Colress into Mirage Gate into Giratina V-Star, or enough switching cards to activate the Comfey as well. There's the Dark Patch, and not much else to be done. 150, as you said.
All right. Kyle draws a Psychic Energy for the turn. And it's a little awkward. The Path to the Peak shutting off his own Radiant Greninja won't really be able to draw through some cards. Attaches the energy to the bench Giratina V and is going to have to Abyss Seeking yet again.
Wow, very slow turns by both players, so Ross will somehow be able to take a KO here, and the double Colress into Kyle's hand. Very nice.
I think you kind of have to keep the Grass Energy, right? Only 3 in the deck, you're losing 1 in the active spot.
Yeah, it's definitely a slightly dicey situation for Kyle, but you also need to activate the Mirage Gate here. So yeah, 1 Colress to a Lost Zone seems very fair, and I have the follow-up. Lost Zone and Ross, yeah.
That was a quick turn of attack, pass.
Draw,
does get a couple prize cards.
Indeed, so Ross getting a little bit ahead. Now Mirage Gate is activated. I'm surprised Kyle didn't evolve the benched Giratina V-Star as he is doing now. If Ross had played or top-decked an Iono, that could have been a little problematic because, as you mentioned, there's no direct search for the Giratina V-Star, so a slight risk, perhaps, in that sense. But now we're going to see a powerful KO from Giratina V-Star. Ross doesn't have much as a response. And, I mean, this attack will be very costly. Lost Zoning another 2 energies when there's already 2 in the Lost Zone could be a little problematic as we advance the game. But Kyle, knowing that Ross just doesn't have much in his hand, at least before the prize cards, he should be feeling pretty safe. I wouldn't mind pre-attaching a few extra energies, knowing that your Giratina is not going to be KO'd. That's exactly what Kyle does. And we did see Ross actually got an Iono of the prize card, so that'll definitely be impactful in this upcoming turn.
Kyle also got an Iono from the top of the deck and opts to play it instead of that Colress's Experiment. That was a decision that you could go either way on.
Yeah, very interesting for sure. I mean, it does deny whatever Ross got of the prizes, but with the information that he hasn't been doing much at all, I'm not so sure I'm super happy with that play. I think Colress to reestablish another Giratina perhaps if you could, through a super rod or something, get a few more energies into play as well, assuming your Giratina V-Star will survive this upcoming turn. So I don't know, a little risky, a little aggressive from Kyle, but I guess that's to be expected of him.
And there is the nest ball, grabbing that Sableye, I believe.
Yep. Sableye not going to be super impactful against Ross's high HP Pokemon, especially with the way Kyle didn't do like any preemptive damage with Cramorant, which is what I really liked, hitting into the Moltres with the Cramorant. I think that would have been really good to set up that late game Sableye follow-up without needing to fully power up a Giratina V-Star, but Kyle takes the knockout, goes up to 9 cards in the loss zone, and if he's able to get another one next turn, he'll be able to just V-Star in order to get this KO.
Yeah, the whole goal is to Lost Impact for 6 prize cards. That's 3 attacks against a deck like Ross's. Does have that Box of Disaster, but puts it on that bench Darkrai V and attach the energy for the turn to the active Galarian Moltres V. Burn does 190 damage. That's not enough to take the knockout here, but you got to do what you got to do. Professor's Research discards a Boss's Orders, but a brand new hand for Ross. The first brand new hand we've seen.
The first brand new hand, as that Skogability did not decide to show up here. And wow, a lot of item cards to be played. Triple Dark Patch in hand as well. So I'm pretty sure the KO is pretty out of reach, the one-shot. That's also a really good card to get. That does activate the ability.
That's a very good card.
Yeah, that Pokestop could lead to a switching card plus a triple Dark Patch, and then all of a sudden you Darkrai V-Star into another. Like, there's the potential for a 5 Dark Patch turn right now.
Well, there's only 2 in the hand. The last one was a Boss's Orders.
Oh, it was a boss. Oh, it is a boss. Okay, so a quad.
Ross
Patch.
is still missing that Darkrai V-Star, so we'll need to hit something like an Ultra Ball off the top with this Pokestop. But it can happen, and if the Darkrai V-Star comes down, you get to use the ability now. No more Path to the Peak.
There's also the possibility to draw into a Darkrai V-Star through Radiant Greninja as well.
And the choice
for extra cards. Yeah, so generally, all of a sudden,
that was like
there's
the best 7 cards.
It was. Was that a Darkrai?
There's
a Darkrai V-Star. Is there there's no switch in the discard ball, right? Not.
I don't believe so, but we can probably find one here.
Ooh,
no.
Not quite. 3 item cards for Ross right here. 280 is a really, really big number, but I don't think it's quite in reach
I
for
think
Ross.
Having to discard the 2 energy to retreat is probably going to do it here. You still can't use Dire Flame Wings because of the Spiritomb on Kyle's bench. So that's 30 damage you're missing out on. But if you use 2 Dark Patches, that means you can use 4. That's 120 right there. 150, 180. Yeah, you're doing pretty much the same. You're doing maybe 210.
210 plus the base 30 to 40. So I guess not quite there. With the choice spell 270 though. So
no, I was counting for those.
You were?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You got to be confident, even if I'm wrong. It's
wow. I mean, it's not gonna happen. There's no switch, right?
Yeah.
But it's crazy how Ross started turn with 2 energies, and he could have actually gotten very, very close to the KO here. It all comes down to that Skogability deciding to live in the prizes for this turn, or for this game rather.
Ultra Ball does discard a couple cards. There's no real Pokemon you can find. Already discarded that Galarian Moltres to be able to accelerate the energy from hand. I guess that would be another way.
Yeah, literally no Pokemon left in the deck. But as we've talked about, thinning your hand, thinning your deck to protect yourself against Iono. And I mean, Ross doesn't know it yet, but there is Roxanne as well from Kyle to potentially disrupt him. So getting rid of those cards that are definitely not useful will be making a difference in the long run. Yeah, and there we see.
Star Abyss. Get 2 item cards from your discard pile, put them in your hand. Well, I like 2 Dark Patch. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine there would be anything really better at this point. Really cool to see. And 700, yeah, it's 10 damage short and the switch, right? So
Yeah.
not quite the big turn that Ross would have hoped. It's good enough, right? It's definitely good enough. And the big thing here is Cal doesn't have another Giratina V-Star, right?
Yeah.
So after he knocks out this Moltres, or even if he goes boss KO the Darkrai V-Star, Ross can potentially power up, make sure he gets the KO with a high HP Pokemon that Cal will have a lot of trouble dealing with. And wow, this escape rope is actually very interesting. Oh, okay, Cal does have a boss's orders in his hand. This will allow him to get to 10 cards in the Lost Zone and will activate Giratina's V-Star Star Requiem.
Yeah, needing to get a Comfey into the active spot to use Flower Selecting. Also found a Jet Energy off of that Flower Selecting, but opted for what looks like a Supporter instead. Oh, another Boss's Orders. Nice.
Another boss's orders. Yeah, that Jet Energy was actually pretty ideal in this spot. Getting the switch into the other Comfey, saving some switching cards, or getting an extra switch one way or another. Kyle doesn't bother at it.
It's enough.
Yeah, it's enough to start Requiem. He's holding the boss, so it's likely that the Darkrai V-Star will be going down at this point in time. But it's how does Kyle close out the game? He really needs to bench another Giratina, but he doesn't have the space to do so.
And the bench is full thanks to that Spiritomb just putting in a little bit of work. Does opt for the Pokestop here. Finds a Mirage Gate and discards a Grass and a Jet Energy. That's not what you want to see.
Definitely not what you want to see. Kyle, I think, is in a little bit of trouble after what looked to be a pretty good situation for him. He'll be able to take this knockout. He'll go down to 2 prize cards, yeah? But he will need either back-to-back Sableye attacks, or he will need to bench a Giratina, but that will open himself up to Ross just going boss to KO that Giratina and the game. So very, very tough situation for Kyle. Ross also does need to draw a Darkrai V-Star off of this upcoming research, which I'd say he has pretty good odds of doing that. We'll see.
Well, if we take a look here, there is 1 in the prize cards, and there's at least 1. Was there 2 knocked out? 2 Darkrai V-Star? So you would need to find the Super Rod.
Oh yeah, you would need to find the Super Rod. The first 2 prizes was a Darkrai V-Star, now another one. That is very true. I mean, an extra energy does it with Darkrai V's second attack, so that would be enough, and it's pretty out of range out of anything that Kyle could do, but he will need to evolve in case the Darkrai gets like pinged by the Sableye, right? So it's on Kyle to get back-to-back attacks. That Iono into the discard pile could be problematic, but Ross is holding another one. So I think Kyle really depends on the copy of Roxanne he still has somewhere in the deck. Ross really wants that Iono to shore up and try to make sure that Kyle doesn't have another attacker set up, but a double Sableye in play for Kyle could also do it to guarantee that he gets the win.
Ross also did find a Dark Patch Super Rod off of the Pokestop, which are probably 2 of the best cards you can find. I guess discarding the Iono, like you said, is pretty detrimental if the game continues on for a little bit more. But Super Rod grabs back Darkrai V-Star, and this Galarian Moltres, we could see some big damage coming out in the next few turns as well.
Indeed. And there's an Ultra Ball as well to be able to fetch that Darkrai V-Star as quickly as possible. The issue is that Moltres on the bench, you know. There's no way for Ross to stop back-to-back Sableye pinging that Moltres on the bench over the next few turns. And if Kyle chooses not to bench a Pokemon V, Ross will not be able to take 2 prizes next turn to close out the game. So it all depends on Kyle's hand, and Ross not being able to play Iono this turn, that's what might end up doing it for him.
There is that Darkrai V-Star. Ross will have the knockout here. And like you said, Kyle's route to victory is by not benching a 2-prize Pokemon, getting those Sableye to be able to take out that Galarian Moltres V.
Indeed. That is the potential liability here for Ross, which, I mean, he started with it, he needed to bench it, but at this point in time, that could end up being the route to victory for Kyle. It all depends on Kyle's hand. He does have quite a good amount of resources, but I'm not sure I see a backup Sable. I do see the backup Giratina, but that could also be a liability.
There is Dark Pulse for the knockout. Ross goes down to 2 prize cards to tie it up with Kyle here. Kyle promotes the Comfey, trying to find a couple more cards. Gets a switch cart off the top, which can dig a little further. Indeed. And finally, Concealed Cards is available to Kyle again.
Yeah, I mean, even Pokestop is potentially a good supporter to use for Kyle. There is that second copy of Sableye. There are no Psychic Energies in the deck at this point in time. So not able to like fully establish the Sableye yet. It's on Kyle to figure this endgame out. He definitely has the advantage, even though they're tied at 2 prizes. He has the initiative, right? He can try to either get a big hit on the Moltres on the bench, establish a Giratina, and that Comfey for double Colress definitely is not ideal when you expect to be Iono next turn.
Hey, we're just trying to get cards out of the deck. Colress does that. Cards you don't want to draw. I think Kyle played a Mirage Gate just to search through the deck.
Yeah,
didn't grab any energy because there was no energy.
So
it needs to find Recycler.
Recycler and Sableye. Yeah, there's both. Yeah,
wow.
There's both cards. Yeah, I mean, with double Sableye set up, that's gonna be impossible. I don't think Ross does not play any way to get rid of a Pokemon from play. So establishing the Sableye, putting the Psychic back, putting some energies back as well, which do serve him in case he gets Ionoed. He can potentially draw them with, or use them as draw power for Radiant Greninja. We do see a Mirage Gate for a Psychic and a Grass to guarantee the retreat. And there's the double Sableye established. So unless Ross can make some magic happen, I don't see how he can get out of this one.
I didn't know he was a magician. Listen, you find out about people's lives outside of Pokemon, it's pretty crazy. No, Ross has, or Kyle has set up a pretty much checkmate scenario here. Both Sableyes with a Psychic Energy in play, ready to Lost Mine that Galarian Moltres. All of it going there. Next turn, you can't do anything about this one on the bench.
Indeed, and like, as we've been talking, right? Like, Iono causes this. Like, you want to have game on board, and that way, even if you get Iono to 1, to 2, however many cards it is, there's nothing your opponent can do about this. Yeah, this checkmate scenario, only a misplay, I guess, a mistake could actually make something happen at this point. The trekking shoes, I honestly don't know what Ross is digging for at this point.
Hope.
You think he'll find hope in his deck?
Anything's possible. All right, he scoops up the game. Kyle Sabelhaus winning game 1 here in round 7 up against Ross Cawthon and that Darkrai V-Star deck. Started off a little slow for both players, but it all came down to that Squawkabilly EX being in the prize cards for Ross, not able to just continue the turbo nature of this deck.
Indeed, this Darkrai deck, like for a player to use Abby Seeking twice in back-to-back turns and not like be punished or heavily punished for it, that's always going to be a problem, right? And even though Darkrai V-Star is a pretty niche choice, it's a powerful card on its own. It does need like that really explosive start. Yeah, you whiff on that start, then you can run into the situations where you're not hitting for enough damage. You also need a lot of pieces. You rely on Darkrai V-Star's ability to really get all those energies into play. If your abilities get stopped, then your whole deck basically stops working quite eminently. And yeah, this Darkrai V-Star deck feels like a hit or miss after this game we just watched.
Listen, if anyone is able to pull off 2 games in 24 minutes, it has to be Ross Cawthon, right?
Indeed. Now, Kyle looking deeply into the future or something else. He's very concentrated.
Future sight here.
Very, very serious to his usual self, right? And I mean, Cal has historically been a very, very, very good player. He's now casting more than playing, but I know he won a League Cup recently, and
Yeah.
he's been doing some testing, right? And he's one game away from locking day 2 at the biggest tournament in history.
Listen, he saw his accomplishments page, and he's like, all right, I need something from this decade.
Yeah, once a year, right? One tournament per year, at one accomplishment from one tournament. That's it, right? And one champion playmat as well to your collection.
Looking at the prize cards, double Battle VIP pass for Kyle along with Giratina V, and that Sableye. That could come up, but it all depends how this turn 1 goes.
Indeed. Now that, the Sableye, as it's at the very top, not going to be accessible, so Cal will not be able to create that checkmate scenario with double Sableye potentially, and might have to rely on the Hisuian Heavy Ball to find it. No way to directly search for that Hisuian Heavy Ball. You have to chance into it sometimes, but that's where it is. And ooh, double Dark Patch for Ross in the prize cards.
Double shoes as well. You don't want to forget about those. You need those to
Keeping it balanced.
to run.
Yeah. Another Moltres start for Ross. We'll have access to Squawkabilly this time around.
Squawk?
No energies in the hand though, which is usually something you want to see. So you can get rid of them playing 14 basic energy in the deck, which is like one of the higher counts. I feel like it's been a while since we've seen such high counts of basic energy.
Listen, I'm still just surprised from the Worlds where Welder was everywhere and they were playing 18 fire, and I'm just, the good old days of 20 energy, 20 trainers, 20 Pokemon, We do see that Squawkabilly EX as well. So
yeah, there it is. So being very important right here to be able to Squawk and Seize, be able to set up, get a fresh hand. Of course, it is a 2-price liability. 160 HP is actually quite low for a rule box Pokemon, as we are used to the 2010s, 2020s, things like that. But it's a way to compensate for the fantastic ability.
I think we're in 2023 right now, Pablo.
There's not a lot of Pokemon that have 230s there.
This is the new hand found, or no? This is still the same hand.
Yeah,
this is none of the cards you want to discard.
Yeah.
Honestly, we're gonna Squawk and Seize into 6 Dark Energy or something.
I mean, you can't Iono, so it's now or never, right? And unless Ross finds an Ultra Ball, it could get a little awkward here, depending on what he draws.
Listen, with Squawkabilly EX, you got one opportunity, one shot to make it work, and it's that first turn of the game. Does Ultra Ball for Darkrai V, so you can at least get that V-Star set up for the next turn.
A play that could come from Kyle, seeing how there's Galarian Moltres that self-damages, Squawkabilly that has low HP. Radiant Greninja could actually be a factor, like back-to-back attacks with Radiant Greninja could allow Kyle to take a 4-price turn at some point. And all right, decent draw from the Squawkabilly right here.
Yeah, that was not a bad hand at all. Second Battle VIP pass for Ross here. Looks like he's just grabbing the Darkrai V. You want to get 2 of those in play, but you don't want to overbench yourself. And it does have Pokestop in hand. We can see that this turn, but it also could help Kyle the following turn. Just depends what Ross wants to do here. Also having access to that concealed cards finally.
Yeah, more energy being found. Being able to attach energy per turn is always very, very important. And yeah, Ross definitely very aware that Pokestop could actually help Kyle. Potentially it won't help him find Cold Rest, but it could help him find Switch Card, Escape Rope to get that Giratina out of the active spot and allow him to start using Flower Selecting. However, Kyle's hand is basically dead. He doesn't have much at all, and
Let's go to game of 3.
Wow.
When you see someone who knows how to scoop when the time's right, you always love to see when it's Kyle Sabelhaus.
Yeah, that's actually awesome to see. Like not Kyle losing, but Kyle scooping so quickly, being very aware of the time, knowing that he has a very good chance of potentially taking a win but he's not going to be able to do so with 10 minutes left. And after a Nabe Seeking, that won't get you much. And then Ross plays out his turn and takes a knockout, right? He just saved both players potentially 3 to 5 minutes. And we're going to a game 3 to determine a winner.
Just over 18 minutes remaining. Should be enough to finish the game, plus 3 turns. Both of these decks, once they start taking knockouts, it's 2-hit knockout, or 2 prize knockouts most of the time. At least, especially for Kyle's side of things.
Yeah, and even like in the extra turns, you'll definitely see like if either player is at 3 or even 4 prizes, then the game should finish, right? So getting 2 prizes for each player within 17-ish minutes as they set up should be very realistic. Yeah, so I'm very excited that we'll have a winner's interview with either player.
Honestly, you can't really have much better interviews than either of these players too. The wealth of knowledge and the fact that they've been in this game for so long, they're the grandpas of the Pokemon TCG right now.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to think about, but they are.
They are. They've both been playing for so long, and as you mentioned at the beginning, Ross being, I think, the only active player in the whole world who has played in every World Championship held to date, already has his invite for Japan. I know for a fact he will be attending, so he will be able to continue that streak.
Which is something in itself, like just being able to say you've played in every single World Championships. There's not really, no one can match that because they've already happened.
No one can match that. Yeah, I definitely, I could have been in the running for that, but I missed a few years as I started becoming an adult with responsibilities. That was, it's difficult being an adult, Jeremy.
Oh, you're telling me. That's why I'm still a kid at heart.
Oh, trust me, so am I. But that doesn't adjust my, that won't pay my rent, unfortunately.
Double battle VIP pass to start things off for Kyle here. This game 3, a much better looking start compared to last game.
Much better. You actually got to play more than 1 card on his first turn, so already plussing here. And with a pretty strong setup, as long as he has some sort of form of switching cards, attachments, which he actually does not have. So gonna be not having a very explosive start, but does have a good follow-up with the Colress in hand. Hopefully that will allow at least something to happen, but no Cramorant again. That, I cannot emphasize how potentially important the Cramorant could be. I know Greninja is fantastic, but when you have no energy, maybe getting that first attack with Cramorant, setting up that Moltres to be able to knock it out towards the end of the game, right? It's definitely not Ross's preferred attacker. If Galarian Moltres attacks itself or attacks, it'll damage itself, putting it even more in range of the Sabelhaus. So I cannot emphasize enough how important I consider the Cramorant. I know Kyle must have not tested this matchup specifically, right? But getting that first hit in could be important at some point.
I think that also lends to the Sabelhaus start as well. If you started a Comfey, I think Cramorant's the easy option for that Battle VIP pass, but having the Sabelhaus in the active, you're going to have to deal with it, and you'll get 10 in the loss zone eventually, but it's not going to do anything until then.
Yeah, for sure. It is definitely the most awkward Pokemon to start off with. Even Giratina is a little bit better than Sabelhaus at this point. But with no energy in hand, I feel like that's the determining factor. Because any energy you find off of Colress will probably be utilized to either Abbey Seeking or potentially Retreat or whatnot. So you won't really have that like freedom to use Radiant Greninja in the beginning of the game, at least when you didn't find any energy.
Speaking of using Radiant Greninja, Ross concealed cards into Trekking Shoes. Trekking Shoes discards and energy, finds a switch. And we got another Shoes going running yet again. Hey, how about another one?
Ooh, Battle VIP pass.
All right, calm down, Ross.
Now, Ross would love to Squawk and Seize. However, he does have double Darkrai V-Star in hand, so I'm not sure he can afford it. And wow, chooses to discard it, keeps the next card, which is a Professor's Research, and now he's pretty nicely set up for a double Darkrai V-Star turn. However, with 1 energy in play, that's a little iffy. Oh, but never mind. He chooses to discard a Darkrai.
Is there any avenue where you just discard the hand with Professor's Research. I guess you need to have the third V-Star in the deck. You also need Super Rod in the deck.
Yeah, I think.
But if it's there, do you go for it?
I mean, if Super Rod's in the deck, I guess you do, but you're so reliant on the one copy of Super Rod to actually have like any form of backup attacker, right? I know Ross probably digging for the turn 1 attack. It's pretty easy to achieve a turn 1 KO on Sabelhaus since it is weak to Dark, and Darkrai V could get that KO potentially, but at what cost? Yeah, at what cost?
Well, I think it's two energy, one dark and one colorless.
I do not mean literally at what cost, but thank you for the clarification, Jeremy.
Professor's Research here does discard of that second Darkrai V-Star. So it's going to be a little awkward start here for Ross. Still has an Ultra Ball. Could keep digging yet again for that Squawkabilly EX.
Yeah, I mean, he did find Dark Patch, he did find Switch, he did find Attachment, so if he wants to attack this turn with the regular Darkrai V onto a Sableye, he certainly can. And I think that's what we're going to see. Or it could be with the Moltres as well. With its ability, that can also happen. There's no Spiritomb this time around in this game. So Ross Cawthon free to use all the abilities. And I don't know, with 2 Darkrai V-Star in the discard pile, I feel like I would want to be a little more efficient with my Darkrai V and try to conserve my Moltres. But no, we just see the KO, no Squawkabilly in play, and freeing up a bench space for Kyle in exchange for a prize card. Seemed like a pretty good trade for Ross.
See, we don't need to fill the bench up because we got a spot open for the Cramorant anyway. Starting things off with the Course Experiment, though. Kyle had it in hand last turn, but you can't play a supporter on your first turn going first, so has to opt for the next turn and does find a couple energies and another Course's Experiment, but would have to lose a Sableye, so instead gets rid of that water to keep that Sableye in hand.
Indeed, I cannot emphasize enough how there's now access to one energy, right? That energy could be either to retreat or to conceal cards, but it cannot do both things. And Kyle, with a tough decision here, draw card or ability denial, which he saw was so clutch against Ross in game 1, but unfortunately no switching cards, no nothing. I mean, I guess at this point, if there was a Cramorant, it wouldn't even be useful, but still. Rough situation for Kyle, off to a pretty awesome start with the Battle VIP pass, but then nothing else to follow that up.
We do see the energy on the active to retreat to that second Comfey and flower selecting again. Almost getting a little too many cards there. Top 2 Giratina V-Star, Hisuian Heavy Ball. You need to take that Giratina V-Star, I think.
Yeah, at this point, Kyle has looked through his deck with the Battle VIP passes. I don't know if he thoroughly searched for anything specific, so this should help in making this decision. And we do see the Heavy Ball, but with no more energies in the hand, no way to switch out. It's just going to be a pass, and Ross will be able to go up 2 prizes here. Now, Kyle might value the Spiritomb right here, and that might have been the reason why he went for the Heavy Ball. I wouldn't fault him for it, but will it be too late?
If not, and Kyle's just doing this because he didn't prize check earlier, that's missequencing. You know, could have had a better card,
yeah.
But it does get that Spiritomb that will help shut off that Dire Flame Wings ability from Galarian Moltres V, which would mean an extra energy is unable to hit the board.
Yeah, I mean, you
definitely retreat.
Yeah, you definitely want to deny energies on the energy-reliant deck, right? So very, very cool. But once again, I cannot emphasize enough how this Greninja has been here for 2 turns and has not been utilized at all. And now it cannot be utilized further because of the path to the peak. So I don't know. I mean, Cramorant also would not have been able to be utilized, but one more switching card and that would have done it, you know. And you do play a bunch of switching cards, the Jet Energy, and getting that damage in, like it literally sentences that Moltres to be sniped later down the line as the game advances.
Guess what card Ross drew? Super Rod.
Oh, wow. I mean, yeah, I mean, that can definitely happen. We do see the Darkrai V-Star. However, did he play an Ultra Ball instead?
He did play an Ultra Ball, yeah. It's just off screen. Hopefully we can get the discard up for us and for y'all at home. But Ultra Ball for that Darkrai V-Star. helps with the attacker a little bit. You also have escape rope, but decides not to play it and just plays that Professor's Research.
Yeah, I mean, if you escape rope, it's not gonna really help you at this point. You want to see more cards. You want to do some damage. Thank you very much for that discard pile. And yeah, another Darkrai V-Star hits the field.
I guess the big thing here is there a stadium out. It does not look like it, so you can't use that Star Abyss from Darkrai V-Star. It's just going to have to Aura Burn, take another knockout. But that's building up damage on that Galarian Moltres V. If Kyle can get to Sableye, he'll have a little bit easier of a time, but the problem's getting there.
Yeah, at this point, using Colress means there's no boss this turn, right? And if there's an escape rope, then Ross will probably promote Greninja, so you're not being really cost effective if you end up using Mirage Gate and taking a knockout with Giratina V-Star, or you're also not getting a knockout with Giratina's Shred attack, because it does 140, so you'd be 20 damage short. So Kyle really under a lot of pressure. He does have Mirage Gate activated at this point, but it's just Giratina's not very cost effective right here.
Is this the turn where you Radiant Greninja, Moonlight Shuriken, build up that damage?
Potentially, yeah. Potentially you soften up the Moltres, you soften up the Greninja perhaps. KOing the Greninja will not help you in the price trade-off. Ross probably will not be benching another single price Pokemon purposely to force Kyle essentially to play 2/7 prices if he needs to. But no, we're not going to see Greninja. We're just going to see the double Mirage Gate into the double Giratina for potentially back-to-back attacks. I mean, even though it's not very cost-effective, Kyle might just need to force this KO on the Moltres, and when there's only Darkrai V on the bench with a single Darkness Energy, there's no way Ross gets 8 energy into play in a single turn.
And finally, we're going to see Jet Energy utilized to great effect here. It is a very powerful special energy card from Paldea Evolved. When you attach it to one of your bench Pokemon, you just bring it straight up to the active, and it's perfect in a deck like this Lost Zone Giratina. It acts as 2 flower selectings. If you attach it to a Comfey, it also gives you the retreat for the other one. And here we go. I believe just the...
Oh, it's Shred for 160,
Shred
not 140. I could have
yeah.
sworn it was 140. All right, so just enough to do the KO. 220 sounds like a more reasonable number for Ross to hit this turn, but he does not have a single Dark Patch in hand. With the Path to Peak, he cannot recover any. If he finds another Moltres, he definitely cannot use the ability because of Spiritomb, even if he counters Path to Peak. So getting a response to this 220 HP Giratina is not looking very likely. However, the regular Galarian Moltres could be utilized if Ross gets a good combination of that plus 2 raw Darkness Energy in their hand. That could be a possibility to be able to take a KO along with a couple Dark Patches somehow, but we're just going to see the Iono right here.
Yeah, such an awkward hand for the Professor's Research that was in there. Dark Patch, couple Dark, that Iono. Those cards you don't really want to discard other than those energies, but you need a lot of cards, and I don't think these 4 cards are really going to do it. Does find the Lost Vacuum, though. That will turn on Star Abyss, at least.
Yeah, and getting rid of the Moltres doesn't seem like a big deal. However, it's only 120 damage this time around. Ross in a very, very vulnerable spot.
Wow.
We just see the evolution from the Iono. The Giratina V-Star will be able to one-shot this Darkrai V-Star, putting Kyle at 2 prizes left. And that's exactly what we're going to see here.
What a top deck of that Giratina V-Star. Didn't have anything in hand, and you can't search for the evolution in this deck. Finding it off the top, just like Kyle likes it.
So Ross promotes the Radiant Greninja. I don't know what he can possibly do. The V-Star for Giratina is almost ready to go as well. And both Giratinas are close to being powered up. We're going to see. Yeah, we're going to see if Ross can pull something off, but with no Iono, a research that might let him attack, but 1 card off from the KO is a very difficult situation to be in right now.
There is that Lost Vacuum, getting rid of the Path to the Peak, but that also puts the Lost Zone counter to 10.
Indeed. So Ross would need to pull off the Moltres play here. in order to have a chance to take a knockout without promoting a Darkrai V-Star, and say you pull that off, right? And say Kyle does not have boss knockout on the Darkrai V-Star. You're still, I don't know, a bunch of energies away from getting to a one-shot on the Giratina V-Star, and then Kyle's only one energy away, and it doesn't seem like that's going to be possible anyways.
Also, just a simple boss's orders from Kyle on the following turn can do it. This is looking a little grim for Ross Cawthon in this Darkrai V-Star deck. Does conceal the cards, finds a supporter in that boss's orders and another dark energy, but I'm not sure if I'm seeing a clear way out. There is the Ultra Ball, so you can grab that Galarian Moltres.
Yeah, Galarian Moltres could be a way to get a KO. With the V-Star, you can grab the switch, right, in order to get this KO. There's a Moltres play indeed, so we are going to see a return KO. But the issue is the turn after. How do you close out the game if you're Ross at this stage?
And honestly, let's look at Kyle's hand. No boss's orders yet.
No boss's orders yet. He will have Comfey, right? He will be able to Flower Select, and he could potentially, if he finds an energy in his top deck or within the Flower Select, he could also Radiant Greninja in order to get those extra 2 cards and see if the boss's orders is somewhere to be found. We do see the Malevolent Charge, however, to get this KO. We also see a V-Star to find most likely a switch, and I would assume a Dark Patch. And there's the 1, and there's the 2.
It's like you know what this deck does and how Ross plays.
It's almost like I'm close friends with Ross, and I'm familiar with his deck choices, yeah.
With that switch, that Galarian Moltres goes to the active. Double Dark Patch is going to put a couple energies on it. That Darkrai V-Star to charge it up for the following turn. Ross is going to go down to 2 prize cards. But can he close it out here? Kyle needs boss's orders off the top to win the game right here. Flower selecting 2 cards. Mirage Gate Comfey. That is neither an energy or a boss's orders.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you grab the Comfey, get closer to the boss potentially, right? It's another chance to immediately win the game. That seems pretty good to me.
2 cards, switch card, Cramorant. All right, I think we're gonna Iono?
Yeah, I would imagine we're going to Iono and maybe V-Star for knockout.
You never like to see that, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, it's definitely not ideal. Kyle will definitely like to find an energy off of this Iono, which means he'll probably replenish his deck indeed with that energy recycler, as if he does V-Star against the Moltres, he will need 1 more energy to knock out whatever is in Ross's side of the board. And Iono is a powerful card. He's using Iono to put Ross down to 2 cards, but he's also going down to 2 cards. So it's not foolproof, right? This is why Iono is such a balanced card.
Well, especially when both players are tied in prize cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Shuffle a hand to the bottom. Both players draw 2. Boss's orders found off the top, but no energy. Star Requiem here, taking the knockout. Energy off the prize cards? Oh, it's that Hisuian Heavy Ball.
All right. So Kyle not quite there. Short of 1 energy. Ross not giving up. We are going into plus returns now. And apparently Ross is turn 1. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, Ross did not draw his card for the turn. So if that is the case, Ross is turn 1.
Turn 1.
That means Kyle only has 1 turn to find an energy to win this match. Otherwise, Ross is looking like he's going to be able to take down this Giratina V-Star in 2 turns.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Kyle, then you're going to be forced to retreat. The Iono did put Ross's boss's orders into the bottom of the deck, though. And the deck has not been shuffled quite yet. So Ross is going to need to reach down into the deck quite a bit here to get to the bottom of it. I can't imagine Ross has a lot of remaining cards left.
2.
Oh, there's 2 cards left, yeah. And I believe he did find a boss. So if Kyle top decks, he wins. If he does not, then Ross is 1 boss's orders away.
Oh, escape rope. I don't know about this.
I guess Ross, I mean, he's hitting for 120 damage right now, so I guess he wouldn't have been able to take a KO, but this way, he can take a KO on a Comfey for 90 damage, and then he can boss's orders the Spiritomb or the other Comfey to close out the game. And it doesn't change the fact that Kyle is 1 energy away from winning the game, but it does give Kyle a little bit of reach into the deck in case he top decks a switching card of some sort.
Switching card, Mirage Gate would do it.
Mirage Gate would also do it, indeed. So this opens up a few top deck possibilities for Kyle.
Jet Energy as well.
Jet Energy, yep. I mean, all those would have served anyways, right?
No, because even just the energy here doesn't win now. You need a way to get the Comfey out of the active spot.
If you promote the Comfey,
true,
right?
But I think you have to. Top card.
Oh,
it was the energy.
No way. It was the energy. So Escape Rope might have won Ross the game, and all right. So Kyle will have to use concealed cards to look at the next 2 cards and hope to find
Mirage Gate. Is there enough energy in the deck?
I'm
Mirage
fairly
Gate.
sure. Yes,
Water,
there is.
grass. There it is. Kyle Sabelhaus able to pull off the victory after an Iono. Wow.
That was quite a turn of events. That was very exciting for something that was supposed to be a top deck. It suddenly became a wow. Wow.
We got one for the highlight reel now.
That's for sure. Wow. I mean, I'm surprised Kyle didn't even debate on the possibility of like promoting anything other than the Comfey. He didn't hesitate. He just went Comfey. And I'm sure, like I've been in that spot. You promote that Pokemon, you see your top deck, and it was the card that you actually needed, and your heart sinks. And then all of a sudden, you're like trying to fumble and trying to like, I don't know. What a close of the game. Wow. I am in awe.
That is insane. Kyle also breaks the caster curse on stream, making it into day 2, 6-0-1. Papa's got a few more tricks left in the bag.
He does indeed. And goes
with Rin there, that is adorable. Look at him, just soaking it all up. It doesn't get many opportunities to do this anymore.
Cannot get more wholesome than this, Jeremy. It really can't.